Thank you for browsing page 121. So you've crafted your game. You cannot wait to have this magnum opus come out and your players to be wowed and awed at what a great game master you are because of all the clever and intricate things you've put in there. And then the game falls on its face. What to do? Well, I want to talk about that a little bit today. How you right the ship, if you will, after a game goes bad. And this is experience talking. I am coming off not one, not two, but three rough D&D games. I'll talk a little bit about what happened in the D&D games, and you'll notice that I have the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Traveler Core Rulebook out here. It's because it can happen in any game session. I've had games bomb from many game systems, but I'm putting these two up because they're the most popular on my channel. So the last three sessions of D&D have been set in my Greyhawk campaign, and I let the players kind of pick and choose who they wanted to play character-wise. And it was not a group that had ever really played together. A few of the characters had played together, knew each other. But I let them pick whatever they wanted around 8th to 10th level. The very first game I had all set, we were going to be going up against some evil hordes that were trying to take over an area in the Vesby Forest. I had a little bit of a mystery in there and everything, and it was all set. And we were just sitting down and just getting ready to start playing, and my wife's phone rang, and it was a phone call she had to take. She was away from the table for about an hour. Right as she was coming back, my son Adam had a phone call he absolutely had to take from work. He was gone about 20 minutes. It was just one of those nights where the game really didn't happen. There was too much distraction, too many people in and out. I couldn't get anything going. And in a 3-hour session, I lost an hour and a half of it. There wasn't much I could do. Okay, that happens. The second game that I ran 2 weeks ago, I crafted up this little dungeon, and it wasn't even a dungeon. It was just this mystery, and the players were going to be in a town, and they were going to have to try to figure it out. And I thought, well, I'm going to try something a little different with this one. I'm going to give them even more agency, let them pick what they're doing, and throw clues in their path, and then let them pick up the clues. Well, it was a great idea, except I didn't give the clues properly. I didn't give them enough information to work on, and they couldn't figure it out simply because I hadn't divulged enough. That's a fault of me. As the DM, I screwed up. And then the third one was just a couple of days ago. We played, and it was the same group of characters in the third leg of this particular game, and everybody's having a good time. I put in a lot of combat because that's what my guys really like in D&D. Once in a while, they just like a pure combat night. And I proceeded to roll atrociously. I had formidable monsters out there that should have been hitting around 40 to 50% of the time. I was rolling probably under 20%. That also includes damage and saving throws. I had a horrible night with the dice. So bad that after the first hour, my players thought I was being nice to them and that I was making up my rolls. And I said, fine, I'll roll everything out in front of you guys. And I think in the course of the night, I rolled something like 9 ones for attacks and for saving throws. It was a brutal night. But those happen. So the only one I'm really kind of blaming myself for is the second one. That was a story I had kind of set up, but I set it up poorly. And I've been kind of beating myself up about it a little bit, and then I've been DMing for over 44 years, so clunkers still happen. So the first thing I've decided I have to do is just let it go. Shake it off, forgive myself for having a bad night, and going ahead and doing my next game. And then as far as the night with the distractions, there's nothing I can do about that. Those happen sometimes. And then the night with the bad dice rolls, those happen sometimes too. But the important thing is I kind of backed off beating myself up, and I took a look at how I prepped the game that bombed and what I could do to change it. I've changed a little bit of how I prep my game. I've had a lot of folks ask me how I prepare for my games, and I'm thinking of doing a video for it, but I'm changing some stuff some ways I've been getting my games ready, so I don't want to do a video on that yet, but sometime soon. So I've changed a little bit of how I do it. I'm adding a little bit more depth in my notes. I had notes on all 3 games, just not enough to cover some of the stuff that came up. Now, to be fair, I don't live and die by my notes. I very often will write notes for my game, and I've been known to completely deviate from my notes, or as my wife used to laugh about, I'd be coming home from work and I completely changed the game. That's fine, and those usually work out really well. These didn't, so I have to look a little bit about what I've done to prep, and I'm really re-examining what I've done to prep. The other thing I'm doing is taking a look at how I involve my players. And the way I tried to involve the players by giving them more say in what happened, well, that was fine, except they didn't really know what to do. And that, again, is on me as the game master. So those happen. A similar story from back in the 90s, we were at playing Traveler. I was doing a session 0 at a buddy's house. We usually played at my house, but in this case, I think my oldest son, Patrick, was little at the time. I think he had a cold. So we decided to play over at my buddy's house. We'd played there before, a good friend of mine. We've had a lot of fun. Well, it turned out that he and his wife were new in the house, but they liked the pop-in. So friends would just come over at any time. They'd sit down, they'd watch a little TV, they'd get up and leave. A new guy'd come in, sometimes 2 and 3 people at once. Well, I'd experienced this a little bit before at their house, but nothing like the night I was trying to do my session 0 for Traveler. We had a constant influx of people and just all these new folks coming and going and distracting, and I had to explain what we were doing and everything else. It was so bad we never got the session 0 off the ground. And we got the characters eventually developed, but not like I wanted, and my players didn't really have a chance to understand the game real well. It was going to be a brand new foray for a couple of them in Traveler. And right after that game, we had a few life changes in our group too, and suddenly that Traveler game never materialized. I rolled the characters, I got everything ready, and then the game never happened. So again, sometimes it's not your fault, sometimes it is. So the important thing is take a look at yourself. Be honest with yourself. Did I run a good game? Yes or no? Is there stuff I could do to improve my game? And my answer to that is there's always something you can do to improve your game. And then the other thing is don't obsess on it. They happen. It was bad luck. You go on to the next. It's like having a bad date. You have a bad date. You just decide that maybe that person isn't for you, and you move on to the next. You don't stop doing it. You just go on to the next. You don't let it stop you. So that's really my advice is you're going to have a clinker game. Do not tear yourself up over it. It's not always your fault. In fact, all 3 games that I mentioned, the one last night was a lot of fun, if not for me, but my players really enjoyed it, which is ultimately the important thing. But I have to also enjoy it. But my players were very polite about it. And, oh, no, this is, your games were fine. You did fine. And they're my friends and they're my family. So I'm not going to get real unbiased feedback from them most of the time. So I had to really take a look at myself and how I was prepping the game and how I was setting the game up and running it. And I'm changing a few things, as I said. So it's never, growing and learning is never a bad thing. It's always a good thing to have in your life and in whatever you're doing. And especially if you're game mastering, don't dwell on something that didn't quite go the way you wanted it to. And don't get mad at your players. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. But that's my advice. Just get back up on the horse and keep moving forward. Tuck your head in and just keep moving forward and come up with a game. So now we're going to let D&D have a break for a week or two, and we're going over to Traveler. I'm going to be running my Traveler campaign that I started last summer. And we're going to be running a couple of sessions of that, and then I'm hoping in September to start a new Traveler campaign. And I've talked to my guys, and they have agreed that I can film the session 0 and the sessions of the game itself. I don't know how well that's going to work, and those actual plays are a lot of time commitment on my part because I have to edit and review all of it again. So whatever I put out, time-wise, if it's a 10-minute video, it usually takes me 30 minutes to an hour to prepare a 10-minute video. So if I'm doing a 2 to 3 hour video, the last time I did one, which is Silent Death Actual Play, it took me over 10 hours to get the whole thing together. So it's a big time commitment. So I'm going to try to do it, and we'll see how it goes. But for right now, Traveler's coming up. I'm getting back on the horse. In this case, it's going to be a starship, and we're going to be playing some Traveler, D&D. Do not despair. My D&D campaign's not going anywhere. I'm absolutely going to play again. Just probably not with that same group of player characters, but it's still part of my Greyhawk campaign, and it will be going forward. So that's all I've got to say on the topic. My best advice is just forgive it and go on to the next one. That's really the best way to deal with it. So thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Please leave comments. Let me know what's happened. If you had clunker games that were your fault or were not your fault, or you blamed yourself either way, let me know. Like and subscribe if you would. Take a look at the Patreon. Help me out there. And I will definitely see you next time on page 121.